Hello, everybody. I'm excited today for a conversation on standout marketing strategies from 2022. I'm looking forward to hearing from our panelists on what they see working and specific examples of when they're knocking it out the park. I hope you leave today with those creative juices flowing and are inspired to be even more awesome. But first, let's get to know our guest. And Barry, because you are to the right of me, you get to go first.
Hey, I'm Barry Elwonger. I've been in the beer industry for roughly 10 years now. Actually, a little bit over that. These years add up, huh? But yeah, ran a brewery. So all the things over there, marketing, sales, taxes, finance, you name it, for about 8.5 years. And then I split off last year to open a marketing agency focused specifically in the craft beverage space. So now we work with some pretty incredible, uh, you know, clients from all walks of the beer industry, wines and spirits.
Do you enjoy working full time in the marketing space now, as opposed to a
Yeah,
billion hats that you used to wear?
I still, of course, found a way to do different things. So, while we're doing a ton of, ad buying, asset production, photography, videography, you name it, and full on like marketing strategies, Google Ads, like essentially turnkey off of that. I still also, do some business consulting for different breweries. So I found a way to still make sure I wear all those hats.
And you have a
They're
family.
just
You
different.
are a busy guy.
Yes, yes. It's fun. I love it.
Now, Erik, before you give your official introduction, I think you will win the award for closest person to me on a StreamYard call ever. You're probably less than a half mile from my house. So it's great to see you virtually, but I'll let you give that official introduction.
Likewise. Yeah, no, it's great to be here. I think I actually heard you earlier when you were talking, from another room almost, it sounded like. Yeah, no, this is great. I appreciate you having me. My name's Erik Leach. I'm with New Realm Brewing Company. I'm coming up on about 4 years here, and I am the Director of Brand Marketing and Creative Design. So wear a couple hats, but one of my favorite parts is kind of getting to do a lot of the packaging design.
Awesome. Excited to learn more about some of your successes today. Thanks for joining us, Erik.
Absolutely.
And Jim, you're up.
Hey, good morning, guys. I'm Jim McCune. I'm the co-founder of the Craft Beer Marketing Awards. I've been in beer marketing since 1996. I'm actually old, but you can't tell. I work with clients really across the country, and my partner at work, Jackie, and I, a few years ago, had some great work, and we wanted to enter it into awards. We had been to all these beer competitions, and we were surprised it didn't exist. So we put together the CBMAs a few years ago, and we're on our 4th year now.
Awesome. Well, I always enjoy seeing the winners and following, all the announcements that you put out. Looking at the past few years of the Craft Beer Marketing Awards, what's the biggest change that you've made as you've evolved?
When we put it together in 2019, it took about a year to develop and design everything. And of course, we launched and we went right into COVID. It didn't really affect us too bad, except for quite a few judges actually were sick. But we got through that and we did really well. And I think one of the biggest changes to date was between the first year and the second year, we went global. And it was just interesting to go from the 10 or 12,000 breweries we have here in the country to, maybe another 8 or 10,000 worldwide. And to see the difference in work, I thought that was really interesting.
Well, it's the ability we have to connect with people across the globe doing, similar things to what we're doing, and just seeing what they're doing that's successful. I think there's so much value in what you're doing, Jim. And I think it also speaks to why, Erik and I aren't in the same room. We don't even want to be in the same room, even though we're, half a mile from one another. So it's this weird internet world we live in. Lots of change. But, looking at the past 5 years, and I think the importance of the business sides of breweries has definitely grown, whether COVID inspired, just as the industry continues to grow. I'm going to give a little challenge to all of you. And I don't want you to say it. I want you to show me on your fingers. So let's say, 5 years ago, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important was marketing for a brewery? And don't do it yet. I'm going to say on your mark. Okay. 5 years ago, how important was marketing to a brewery? Show me those fingers. Okay, so all of you said 10, 5 years ago. And how important is it now? Equally as important. Would you hold up more fingers if you could?
This was an extra one.
So is it fair to assume the role of marketing has grown with its importance to breweries these days?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I've even seen that at even local breweries here in town where their marketing team has grown. 5 years ago, a marketing team used to be one person. And, for some of them, it still might be. But, we've seen some local breweries go from one marketing person wearing all the hats to actually having a support team. And I think it's just because they're starting to realize the importance and the need, for a larger workforce in the marketing department.
And I guess when I ask a question to 3 marketing professionals about how important marketing is for a brewery, of course, it's always going to be a 10. So that was probably an unfair question to go with. But Jim, I want to throw the question your way. I've heard you mention that marketing was once a nice to have. Now it's a must have. Why do you believe this?
Like I said, I started out in 97. I launched Blue Point Brewing Company here on Long Island. There was only 400 breweries in the entire country at the time. The guys that opened that brewery were just 2 friends that, wanted to make good beer. And they gave me their business proposal. And I was in college at the time, and I had given it to all my professors. And they wrote on the back, tell these guys they're crazy. They're going to go out of business. They obviously ripped that up and did their own thing. But, back then, there was really no marketing. If you looked at the packaging, it was just the logo of the brewery. There was no social media. There was no websites. There was no cell phones. Like, it was a completely different world. So as you see in the progression, which I can't believe in my own lifetime, we went from when I was a kid, there used to be No Frills beer. It was just a white can that said beer on the side, to walking into a beer distributor now, and it's like Valhalla. So I think today with the competition, it's fierce with 10,000 breweries, each with 20 to 50 SKUs. That's a lot of beer, and people need help to spread the word.
Barry, what are your thoughts? Why is marketing so important right now?
Yeah, way long are the days of if you build it, they will come. And I think what we're seeing is, instead of people just letting the bartender take some photos or whatever else, because it is such fierce competition out there now, people are having to get a lot more intentional with it. And the biggest thing and biggest piece of advice is to stop getting stuck on just doing tactics and actually build a strategy. So it's refreshing to see the places that are doing that and have a strategy succeeding, and then the other ones are losing in competition, which is the nature of it. But yeah, marketing always important right now, just ever so more. It's not just social media. It's much
5 years
more.
ago, we probably weren't even talking a whole lot about social media, and we'll dive into that shortly. I mean, it's obviously something we were doing, but I think the importance has definitely grown. We'll touch on that shortly. But first, when we talk marketing, there's so many different aspects to it, and we're going to do our best to touch on all of them and why it's important to the brewery. But first, as you mentioned, Barry, no longer can you have, if you brew it, they will come. You really have to invest in the business side of things. So how are you all seeing good design and in illustrations build brands? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and an example of where you've seen, that good design and marketing, help a brewery grow.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes back to, what we were talking about, how it used to be, as Jim was saying, 400 breweries to now a very, very saturated market. If you go to like a Total Wine and you look at the shelves, you can be very overwhelmed with the amount of selections. And so being able to kind of pop up off the shelf, just having kind of the standard logo, brewery, the logo on there might not kind of help you. You got to get, the loudest person, squeakiest, wheel gets the grease kind of thing. So, you want to try to get people's attention as loudly as possible, because you really don't have a lot of attention span, time to get the consumers to kind of look at what you got to offer.
Absolutely. I mean, people have short attention spans for sure, and you want to be able to jump off the shelves. Jim, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in it. I think understanding who you're selling to, I mean, that's the first class in advertising 101 is know your audience, and, understanding who's going to buy that packaging is like really the first step. And then, like anything in life, I think humans are attracted to things that are designed nice, from anything from furniture to cars to clothes. Beer is no different. If a brand looks underserved or underdesigned a lot, they're passed over for a brand that seemingly has like a lot going on. not only just a nice looking label, but the whole backstory and being able to pull all that together, I think is super important to getting a customer to stop, and then grab and also to buy. Those are three separate things that need to happen in sequence to get your clients beer purchased. And like Barry said before, the breweries that are doing that well are winning.
So let's look at breweries that are winning, Jim. I'll put you on the spot on this one. Obviously having solid packaging that jumps off the shelves is something both you and Erik have mentioned is very important. Are you able to give me an example of a brewery who's doing a great job with that, or just a general example of some trends you've seen are helping breweries succeed on the shelves?
Yeah, definitely. Somebody that I work with is a brewery here on Long Island called Garvey's Point Brewing. And they started out just 5 years ago. It's just the perfect example of like when really, really, really good beer is paired with really good design. You could really build a fan base. And that's exactly what they did. In just 5 years, they went from a small brewery to just a couple months ago, we launched their brand new $7 million brewery restaurant right on the water. And it's pretty funny to go from like little red brick building, which believe me, we all loved, to now you could drive your boat up and get growlers. It's like a whole different experience, but it's the perfect example. If a brewery wants to vector in that direction, making sure you cover those two good bases, good beer, good design, and good marketing. And it'd be crazy if you failed.
What do you like best about their marketing and design?
I like that they have levity to everything. A lot of breweries take themselves very seriously, which, that's their own brand story. But Garvey's Point in particular, they take it with the grain of hops, I guess you can say, or they really have a great look and a great vibe, and that translates to what the consumer is looking for. So I just love it.
Awesome. Erik, what are you seeing? You spend a lot of time in packaging yourself.
Yeah.
Are there any packaging successes you're proud of recently, whether from New Realm or other breweries you've seen on the shelf?
Yeah. Really last year, we kind of took a large step forward with a lot of our packaging design, kind of breaking out of the box a little bit. And I think each one that we did last year took another step forward. And I was really, really impressed with what we kind of finished 2022 with. And it's spilling over into 2023. So a lot of really great stuff coming about. One thing in particular that we kind of finished off the year with was a collaboration that we did with Firestone Walker and Stone Brewing, along with New Realm. And
I've been wanting to try this beer for some time. I need to make it down to the tap room.
Jam. That's right. Yeah. I'll run one by your house. I got one in the fridge. I'm doing dry January right now, so I actually can't even drink it. So you know what? I've got one in my fridge for you. There you exactly. So that one was a lot of fun. And I think one of the things that I enjoyed the most about that was there wasn't really a clear-cut premise for what the packaging was going to look like. So, like, all options were on the table. So I just decided to make a label that made absolutely zero sense. And without having any boundaries or anything kind of guiding me, I was able to kind of, like, really explore full creativity. And that was a lot of fun. But, a brewery that I've really been kind of, like, digging lately as far as a marketing and packaging design is Great Notion Brewing Company out in Portland, Oregon. They've got an artist that's working for them. I'm kind of blanking on his name right now. I know I follow him on social, but they're really great. I really love, the consistency of their branding and just the kind of, it almost looks like linoleum woodcut kind of printing for all their branding. It's a lot of fun.
Good shares right there. And Erik, it's not something I plan to dive into, but you mentioned how much you love that Obsidian Jam label. When you are involved in a collaboration beer, what's the process like to figure out who's going to design the label? Who are you getting feedback from? I'd love to hear your thoughts on, obviously you were the one, or New Realm's the one who took the lead on the label.
Yeah.
But what did that whole process look like?
It differs a little bit. I think one of the main things that we kind of use as a rule of thumb is where is the beer being brewed? So in this particular instance, it was being brewed down in our Atlanta facility. And so I was able to go down to Atlanta while the brewers from Stone and Firestone Walker flew out to New Realm to brew with us. Now, a lot of times Mitch will go brew with other folks, and at that point in time, normally that's the brewery that will then kind of lean on the packaging design. Now, there's an exception to every rule of thumb, but that's generally how we kind of approach it. And a lot of times there will be some collaboration, whether it's just from us saying, hey, here's our logo and our brand standards and our brand guidelines, to let's maybe kind of work together a little bit. But for the most part, we try to keep as few cooks in the kitchen on that as possible, because things get done a little quicker that way.
Absolutely. Barry, what are you seeing in the packaging world, whether it's breweries that you're interacting with yourself or just ones that you see out in the market that are just knocking out the park?
It was something that was alluded to off of one of the other items, but I think that especially when it comes to the core brands, having a sense of a feeling of consistency, so that you have, brand families or items that are, noticeable across it. Back in the day, I used to do a ton of different one-off projects, and they were great, but we also had a very different philosophy for the stuff that was never going to leave our tasting room. And even though it still fit the overall motif that we were looking for, they aesthetically look very different from the ones that were intended to go onto a Publix grocery store shelf. I see a lot of places that are just doing whatever they want with each one of the things, and they're not really building their brand at that point of it. They're just, maybe selling this thing, but it doesn't really have a big exponential growth opportunity with it or extension opportunity with it. Some of the ones I'm seeing that I think do a really good job with it, with color, with design, with consistency. I think Green Bench Brewing over in St. Pete, they're not one of my clients. They're good friends of mine though, but they do an amazing job across the board. They do tons of one-offs also. And the philosophy that they've taken with their design, I think, is great. And then Hidden Springs Ale Works out of Tampa, they have a very nostalgia based and also very consistent base with their art. It's colorful, it's playful. Their core brands have these little riots that are across all of their cans. They're little icon sketch drawings. Ariel Katrina's their artist. She's amazing. But that brand as a whole, just they get consistency and keeping a constant aesthetic. So I love seeing work like that and seeing it pull off the shelf. It draws you in, it takes it, and you pick it up and you go.
Barry, you've mentioned a few different things. Consistency is something you probably mentioned 10 times in the past 2 minutes. So, what are the differences between, that small brewery who's doing the one-off taproom releases versus the brewery who's looking to be on the shelves in Publix? Are there different standards that smaller breweries should be abiding to versus the large brewery? And do they have a little more flexibility with trying those silly one-off designs?
I think everyone has the ability to have that flexibility. The question goes back to, again, having a strategy as to what you're doing. I think that when you're very small, or if you have a boutique distributor and you can do a little bit here and there, you really don't care, because you're not trying to necessarily, grow that for the sakes of distribution growth. It's really about how fast can you turn that tank and keep the next thing going and keep the ever changing consumer's attention at that time. But again, at that point, you also, if that's what you want to be, fine. But if you're that middle tier and you want to be, you're now a 15-barrel brewery and you want to still play like this, but you also want to have the random things in it, chain accounts don't work like that. You need to understand the difference, and you need to set the tone with it, and you need to just build a strategy, and be authentic and hold yourself accountable to that strategy. And I think the strategy changes based off of those situations.
Absolutely. And I think also having different types of strategies when you look at things like grocery and then C-store, different approaches to that as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome. No, we got a lot to cover today, everybody. So we're going to dive into something completely different from packaging right now. I think if we were having this conversation 5 years ago, I don't know if TikTok even existed. Did it exist 5 years ago? Someone probably knows the answer to that.
I don't know, not 5.
But we're not going to dive deep into TikTok. Don't worry. But, I would love to hear about how the value of social media marketing has changed over the past few years, and what trends you all are currently seeing that are successful, whether it's something, Jim, you're seeing entered into the CBMAs, or something Erik and Barry, you're seeing with regard firsthand to breweries that you're interacting with or part of. Talking a little bit about social media these days.
Yeah, I could kick that off. Social media has really become the dominant role. I think the big jump for advertisers back in the day was legacy media like television and radio, and outdoor was expensive. And smaller businesses didn't have the funds to do that. So here comes social media that really has, you know, exponentially more eyeballs on it, and you could get in the game cheap because you're able to target your message. And I think that's why it became, you know, the top dog, at least in our business, because it's immediate and it's affordable and it's understandable. I think the hard part, you know, we could all attest, this is what we all struggle with every day, is changing algorithms, and also what seems like a real crackdown on anything like beer or alcohol related. So I've noticed it's been a little harder to get those posts to get out there, especially global. As soon as you go outside of the US, it gets even harder. So those are the challenges I think that we face today. But the things that are going on social are amazing. And I think we all know, my partner Jackie's not here, but she's a huge advocate of it. I never even heard it till she had mentioned it years ago, but that's FOMO. And if you could create any type of visuals that make me feel like I'm missing out, that's the best advertising you could do. Because how many times have you seen a delicious beer, you know, and said, oh, right after work, that's where I'm going.
So looking at creating that FOMO, Jim, are you seeing more success with breweries posting pictures of that delicious beer? Or do they need to be a little bit more creative and showcase other aspects of their brand to get the consumer to want to gravitate towards them?
Yeah, I think everyone will agree. It's definitely a mix, but I think since COVID, the big challenge is how do you get people to go back to, you know, the consumer habits they had before COVID, which I was fine before COVID. I did not like that. I think it's been rough since then. And I think we're all almost to recovery now. But yeah, I think show the beer, show the food, show the fun, and get people to experience the brewery or a tap room. It goes a lot further than just maybe tasting the beer.
Indeed. Now, Erik, do you wear the social media hat at all at New Realm?
No, I mean, now I will say I've definitely dabbled in it and I'm somewhat involved in it, but we have, you know, a large enough department that I've been able to step a little bit away from that, which has been kind of nice. But no, I still have some involvement in that for sure. And, you know, one of the things that we've seen, you know, as you talk about changing algorithms, I mean, just really within the last year, you know, we've seen a drastic change from being able to post like a really nice, high quality photo of the beer can. It used to perform very well, and now it doesn't do anything because you have to dance now. You have to kind of make like a reel, or you have to lip sync over something. You know, it's like that's what is doing it. And I think it's more because it's less. You know, this really a lot of it changed during the pandemic. You know, you went from a lot of outdoor and radio to everyone just being locked inside their houses. So social media is where everyone started to put all their money, and now people also during the pandemic wanted to stop being. You know, they had that disconnect from people. So they didn't want to be advertised to or promoted to. They wanted to have an engagement. They wanted something that was fun, something they could have fun with and engage in, you know, back and forth. So like, I think the graphic or the photo of the beer kind of went to the wayside, and people are like, hey, this person's kind of funny and is having some fun and they're dancing with the beer. I like that a lot more than, you know, what this advertisement was. So it's been a huge kind of shift. And really over the last year, you've seen, you know, channels like Instagram trying to compete with TikTok. And so they've been kind of prioritizing reels over static images. You can even just go to your Instagram right now and scroll through it and find out how many static images you see versus moving people. And you can see where everything's kind of going. And so at 41 years old these days, I kind of lean on some folks at our brewery who kind of understand what to do a little bit more than I do, because I'm a little lost in it and I like to just step back and trust them in their process.
You mean you don't have a TikTok, Erik?
I do. You know, I do. I think I have 3 videos on it and maybe 3 likes total. Like,
my
so
TikTok
I'm not viral.
I have a TikTok. I do have that account, but the relationship with TikTok is more so my wife will tell me, Andrew, I sent you a video. Did you watch it? And the answer is always no. But my wind down time at the end of the night is her showing me 5 videos on TikTok, which I won't lie. Some of them are quite neat sometimes. I'll learn something or I'll be entertained. So I do see the value, but you know, it takes a lot of time to craft this content. And, you know, we talk a lot, Barry, I think this will lead into you. of that consistency. But, you know, Erik, you mentioned no longer can you just post a delicious picture of the beer. You got to make people, you know, want to watch you dance, want to see you lip sync. So when you're putting more creativity into the social media side of things, Barry, do you believe it takes away from that consistency and results in more one-off efforts that, you know, try to beat the algorithm or try to find best ways to capture that guest attention when they're not in your tap room?
I guess there's two ways to do it. Add a paid component to your strategy, which a lot of people think that organic is everything. You spend, you know, 1 billion hours building stuff, send it out there and you're getting the same results and bang in your head. Change your strategy, add a paid component, do something else to make sure that, you know, that whatever you're doing is being put there. Or, you know, to the point of consistency, sometimes less is more. You know what, if you are going to, you know, try to have something that's very consistent, high quality and all of that, don't post every day. Make sure that when you do post, it is, you know, very intentional and that you are really getting messaging across, and do, you know, 3 really good posts this week instead of 5. And you know what, do video, do other things, and really spend your time and craft it well. And I think that's the big shift for it is, you know what, everyone felt like they have to just near constant post before, whether it be about everything, and you're just flooding people and annoying them and, you know, churning out followers for your organic ones that do follow. Craft a better message, do something that it catches their attention in the current span that we all have, which is apparently 1 minute. And, you know, start with less is more, but higher quality.
Barry, you wear lots of different hats in the marketing arena. Is there anything social wise that you're proud of right now, something you've helped create or something that you've seen by another brewery that just is amazing?
One of the programs, and I think this really goes, and I'm sure this is going to come up again in a second, of the more communal nature of, you know, our industry as a whole. But one of my favorite projects from last year was Rising Hope from National Pediatric Cancer Foundation. So we did some video work for that and some PR for that. But that involved over 40 different breweries, a handful of different suppliers, and all of the proceeds of that were benefiting the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation for funding less toxic, more targeted research for kids with cancer. That project, you know, has this impact because you're hitting all of these different you know, breweries, and you're catching the eyes from each one of those partners that's involved with it. It's a great cause, and it's something that, you know, just really it hits a lot of the marks that gets people excited to want to try that beer. And then the beer is just really damn good too, and it's a unique beer in each one of the places. So for me, as far as, you know, actual like a well thought out strategy, execution, and all that, that program's something I was really proud of last year. It was just really cool and hit a lot of marks.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that, Barry. You know, we've talked a lot about packaging today. We've talked about social media. For the three of you, how important is merchandise in a brewery's branding strategy? I told you we were going to talk about a lot of things today.
I mean, I could jump in if you want just to kick us off, but I mean, to me personally, merchandise is one of my favorite things. Like if I walk into a brewery, I'm like getting a hat or a t-shirt or something. I always want that keepsake. But I think for a brewery, it's like a walking billboard. You have somebody buying and agreeing to wearing your ad. Like it really should be a big priority of breweries. And that's why we make sure with the CBMAs, it's one of our top categories.
There, Erik, thoughts on merch?
Absolutely, wholeheartedly agree. And it's definitely really cool when you can come up with something that is unique and authentic to your brand. You know, something that is, you know, just really stands out with good design to it. There's so many that are just straight up, here's the logo, and that's fine, and they sell great. And then there's some that are just like, well, way overthought, way over, you know, designed, but don't really get the messaging across, or unless you're like one of the 6 people that knows what that is, you don't know what it is. So finding that happy medium between just like a really, really cool design, as well as also it being aligned with your brand, you know, feel and motif as a whole.
Yeah, Barry, I'd love to kind of dive deeper into that one for a sec. I was at a brewery the other day. They make fantastic beer. Their logo is solid. It's nothing that anyone's going to say, I have to have that on a t-shirt, but it's a solid logo. You know, how do you take a brewery like that who has a strong brand recognition, but get them to sell more merchandise? Any tips or tricks to take that brewery with the, let's call it average logo, and get the guest to want to wear it?
hire a good designer and then pull in some stuff from your cans or other pieces of art, whatever, like your other lateral parts of your collateral, to talk like Dr. Seuss to my kids. But you know, pull in other parts of you know, your brand designs for it, and just make sure that it's synergistic with whatever is going on to that shirt. And just, don't overthink it and don't overdo it. Don't make it to where your printer's going to hate you or to the person doesn't want to wear it because it's too much.
Fair enough.
Sorry. Ed Hardy or whatever it was back in the early 2000s. Not my jam.
Come on, I was going to send you one of those shirts as a thank you for today.
Yeah, not my thing. I don't even think I
CBP
got
Ed
his
Hardy
branding right.
edition.
So.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, you know, like Barry said, it is a very fine line to walk. You know, I think all of us who've had a lot of brewery experience have seen, you know, some merch that we've created that just doesn't move. And I think sometimes it's just because.
Okay, Eric, give me an example. What's one of those pieces of merchandise you may or may not have designed it yourself that just didn't work the way you thought it would? We got to learn from these failures, guys.
On the spot, I'm trying to think of one. You know, I don't know if I want to like call anyone out. But typically, if you see a fire sale on something at a brewery, it's normally a pretty good sign that one probably missed the mark a little bit. And, you know, a lot of it, this is, you know, subjective kind of stuff. But I know myself in particular, I kind of lean towards more of the simplistic, just straight up logo. I've got shirts probably that are 10 years old or even older that, you know, they're all faded now, which is even better, you know, because I like it when the logo's faded and everything and starts to show its age. But, you know, and, you know, what's also important is the quality of the material as well. You know, something that's going to be soft, something that you're going to wear for 10 years or more.
One of the amateur moves you see all the time is when you start designing t-shirts, you realize you're only getting one size frame to work in through all sizes of shirts. So if you don't maximize or minimize that design, you could have an extra large shirt with this tiny little graphic, or even worse sometimes is the small with the massive graphic. So, you know, it's also about placement. People really are fanatics about, you know, if the graphic going to be super large or super small or pocket, and little things to always think about when you're making stuff like that.
And the last challenging part to it, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. And this is even more important these days, just because everything costs more, is, you know, the right price point, you know, because consumers are going to have a range in which they want to buy. And if, you know, your shirt's too expensive and, you know, the amount of colors used and all that kind of stuff are too expensive, you know, you may price yourself out of where consumers are. And so sometimes the fire sale that you might see at a brewery might not be because of design. It might be because, you know, the margin that you need to make might actually price yourself out of where consumers are willing to spend their money.
That's a really good point, Eric. And I think often when we talk about merchandise, we just second nature, we refer to, you know, t-shirts and things like that. But I think merchandise can also represent like smaller knickknacks, whether it's just a simple sticker, keychain, or some unique item that your brewery's, you know, trying to put out, because your goal is to take your brand outside the tap room, just like Jim said, make everyone, you know, a walking advocate for you. And not everyone, Eric, as you mentioned, you know, might want to buy something that's whatever number of dollars, but they might be willing to spend, you know, a handful of dollars to take something with your logo or brand name outside the tap room. And, you know, I ran some interesting numbers the other day with regard to merchandise. And well, I'll let you guys guess on this one too. Do you think when people are purchasing merchandise that they're also tipping on that total tab, or are they subtracting that $20 shirt and tipping, you know, 20% on their in-store purchases and, you know, a little bit less on what they purchased to go?
I'd assume that the total tip might, and I don't think that's the philosophy. Instead of it tipping 20% off the total, they probably tip 18 on the total. It's my guess.
I think that's about fair.
So it's really interesting. The numbers show that when a guest is going to purchase to go or merchandise, they're actually tipping a smidge more than when they would, you know, not purchase the item. But my theory on that is, you know, if you go to a place and you have a phenomenal experience, the beer is fantastic, the server is engaging with you, you just feel connected to the brand, you're probably already having a really high engaging experience. So you're going to be more likely to drop money on those added purchases. So, you know, you not only want the extra item, but that staff member, you know, has probably done a killer job of connecting you with the brand. So really interesting data there to kind of see the value of merch. And Jim, like you mentioned, just getting them to walk out the door wearing it.
I could totally believe that. I would probably say maybe at dinner, you know, I'm at 18, and then you sit at the bar and you're having a couple of drinks, and now I'm at 20. Now I'm cutting through the merch shop and I love this. I might be at 22. I don't know. Like, so yeah, that probably is the truth.
You know, one more thing about merch, because I know, Erik, you do a lot of really unique designs at New Realm. Are you doing, you know, shirts in recognition of these one-off designs? Can I get like an Obsidian Jam shirt, or, you know, a shirt for, talk to me about that.
Yeah. So we actually, I've been fortunate to partner with a couple agencies that really help us in that regard. So when I'm done with a label, you know, I'll create kind of an entire brand kit. But then, you know, when it comes to the merch, I'll pass it off to an agency. I'm like, hey, what do you guys think we can do with this? And they'll kind of come back with an entire presentation of what the hats could look like, t-shirts, tank tops. You know, we've got some fanny packs and cool koozies right now that are coming. And so, like, lots of really cool stuff. And it's really awesome to see sometimes how a third party can take what I've done and make me see it in a way that I wasn't even thinking about. Because, I mean, I've been looking at it the same way for months, and sometimes you get kind of like locked into that. So when you get another person's spin and take on it, and you're like, that is really cool. I like what you did with that.
Is there an example of one brand or one logo in particular that you were impressed what they did with it?
Yeah, and I don't know if I have anything right now to share, but one of my favorite labels that I just created recently, it's called Psychedelic Rabbit. It's kind of a spin-off of Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit. And that one's super fun. I can actually see if I can even drop an example of it in here. But we have an agency that we work with that really blew that one out. And I was just like, that's even cooler than I thought I was, you know. I wouldn't have even in a million years came up with that. And so they've really done some really great work on it. And obviously Psychedelic Rabbit gives you a lot of opportunities with, like, you know, tie-dye and just like really cool, just like hippie kind of just fun stuff. That one was a lot of fun.
I'll definitely be buying one.
There you go. I'll see if I can send you an example to drop in.
Yeah, I put one in the chat just now.
Okay,
Barry, in your world, what's something you're really proud about to be partnering with? Something you've got in the works right now, or something you recently put out?
Oh, man, that's an interesting one. There's a couple of projects that are in the works that haven't released yet. So we've done a ton of video work, especially towards the backside of last year. So we have some really interesting things, but they're not released yet. A couple with some breweries and one that was a brewery and wine company collab. So we have a couple of things coming up with that definitely speak to it. The last one that we had finished, it was pretty cool. Yeah, definitely the Rising Hope one that comes to mind as far as like Big Bang one from last year. And then we just finished the video for Florida Brewers Guild also. So lots of little things.
You said video quite a few times. Talk to me about some quick tips, tricks. You know, why should breweries be incorporating video into their marketing?
I mean, from all facets of it, you know, definitely with, you know, your social parts of it, to the point of like organic with what's actually serving. You know, video is absolutely king, especially as, you know, Meta tries to, you know, fight the good fight against, you know, TikTok. So just having good storytelling in it, I think that's the biggest thing. Is like, you know, do videos that are fun, on brand for you, and that, you know, are gonna just really make someone feel like a part of you and like they want to be there and to try your beer.
And to try your beer. So for all of you, you know, what's something in craft brewery marketing right now that's surprising you? Are there any trends that you're actually shocked to see, whether it's us using certain platforms, whether it's certain angles that are just resonating more with craft beer drinkers? What's something in the space that you're surprised about right now?
You know, one thing that I'm absolutely surprised with right now, and this has been just a huge, I don't know when this change shifted, but universities starting to partner with breweries. Right now, we're partnering with Georgia Tech down in Atlanta, and we've made actually 2 beers for them to be the official craft beer of Georgia Tech. And, you know, I remember when I was in college, all the football games were dry. You know, you couldn't have alcohol. And so it's just, this must have changed in the last year or so, but universities are now starting to reach out with, you know, requests for breweries to kind of partner with them to be the official craft beer of their brewery. And they're really expanding into it with like signage and like and we've got the CLC logo on it. The college licensing committee is like literally on our labels, and it's extremely official. It's great. But that's extremely shocking and surprising to me right now.
And that's very cool, because when you get your logo at a football stadium with X number of thousands of people, you're introducing your brand to an audience that might not have been drinking it otherwise. And, when it's the official beer of that team, who doesn't want to drink it when you're at the game?
And
right?
When you're looking at basketball, baseball, football, I mean, every single facet of the athletic department we're involved with now.
I think it's a great strategy for craft beer to reach new consumers by tapping into those markets. Very, very neat.
Yeah,
And
Jim, what do you think?
the stadiums and the teams that are getting involved in that, because what they're doing is they're really reinforcing the importance of local, because most of the people that are at these games are local. So to have that opportunity to buy locals, just awesome.
Yeah, and then we've even had alumni reaching out to us here in Virginia Beach saying, or I'm here in Norfolk, but our Virginia Beach location, they're like, hey, I'm an alumni of Georgia Tech. How can I get some of this? And there's like a Hampton Roads Georgia Tech Alumni Association here locally. So you really tie yourself in local, but then it even has like a little reach outside of it.
Yeah, the art of collaboration, definitely very important.
To expand upon that also, you're, really resonating with a younger, audience that this generation's the first generation and forever that really grew up with it being a sense of normalcy for like having your local brewery and other parts of it. Like, when we all were starting to get into craft beer, there wasn't very much of it, but now it's everywhere and it's just part of general culture. Now you're getting an opportunity to be right there dead center of that with them as they're going through that next part of their life, as they're in college and going into grad school and everything else. So you're really building long-term engagement in a very hard market to do so.
Very true, Barry. So, going from that, what's something that's surprising you right now?
Man. How many places are still acting like it's 5 years ago? That's surprising to me.
Yeah.
I won't make you give any examples on that one.
Yeah. If you're that, people, just call me. We'll help.
So we just had a question come through, talking about label consistency. What graphic elements, layouts, etc., would you say are most important to contribute to consistency?
I'll jump in there and I'm going to triple down, what Barry and Erik had already mentioned before. I know consistency was probably mentioned many, many times, but I'm a stickler for that. Like, I know that's what I was trained in college to do, to be the most effective. And if you looked at really any of my brands, homogeny across different SKUs is one of the most critical things a brewery can do. Barry mentioned, not everyone is in the opportunity to do that. A lot of times brewers will get lost in that one-off shuffle game because we are in that tap rotation nation. But if a brewery could afford themselves the opportunity to take a second and be strategic and come out with a line and then, be consistent. If you look at any of my brands, that brewery's logo is in the same spot. I will not change it, not even for the client, because I know how important it is to the consumer. I mean, mentally, subconsciously, but I also know how important it is to resellers to have a shelf set. And I won't bore you with like the winification of what happened to beer, in the mid 90s, but the explosion of this many SKUs makes it difficult, not only for the consumer to pick what they want, but for the distributors to organize it in a way that makes sense and sell it. So it is a crazy world we live in. And if you love beer, my gosh, this is the best time to have ever been alive, maybe in the history of humans.
Yeah. Yeah, and on top of that, because that's one of the things that we do with our brands, because ours can look a little different, but to your point, Jim, we have logos in certain spots that never move those spots, whether the size, the placement, location, all of that stays consistent. But I think it's also important to have one brand, or what, not so much one brand, but like one, like, I don't know if it's a rotator, a special release, or like if you have a mix pack per se. And in that mix pack, you have an exclusive. Like, have one that you can kind of break your rules a little bit to kind of go outside of that. Because I think by doing that, you can kind of explore things where your brand can evolve, by breaking outside of some boxes that you consistently have everything else in. Because you do need to have that consistency.
Yeah.
But I think having one opportunity where you can kind of break about. Maybe it's with collaborations. Find one that's not super important to your entire overall portfolio to have a little bit of fun and break those boundaries a little bit. And that's been one thing that's helped us by doing that. It kind of really started with our rotator series, and that mix back was what I was referring to. And we kind of started playing around with things, and we were finding things that kind of work from a design aesthetic kind of perspective. And we also kind of did that a little bit with our special releases. And when we can combine it together, we found kind of a new direction for our brand to kind of take. And over the last year, it's really been kind of like going that direction. It's been a lot of fun and fun to see.
What's a beer you've released, Erik, that you kind of went outside that usual New Realm box? Obviously, you stick to your key elements that you mentioned, like placement and design, but what's one you tried that you took a chance on that you saw success with?
Yeah, so it really kind of, another example, it started with our special release series that we had. We would have a beer like Oaxaca Chaca. That was a beer that was designed by artist Sam Heimer. I highly recommend checking out Sam Heimer. He is really, really awesome. SamHeimer. He's fantastic. So he was the designer of Oaxaca Chaca, which actually won a Platinum Crushy last year at the CBMAs. But that one was created before I came on board. And when I came on board, I was like, that label is awesome. That is like one of the coolest labels I think I've ever seen. And so we kind of treated the special release series like that. And that's where Tyrannosaurus Flex came from. And that was one of the first ones. And then that developed the Monsters and Myths series. And the Monsters and Myths series, I was able to really go in and just have fun with all crazy different monsters and all sorts of stuff. And like, actually it was that series with Tyrannosaurus Flex and El Juicy Cabra, both won Crushies as well. So that one was a lot of fun. And then it transitioned as those labels were just, and again, this kind of ties back into social media. You start having fun with this stuff, it's received very well on the other side. And so that kind of transitioned into last year when we rolled out with Haze Dipper and Tropic Dream. Those were two of our beers last year that kind of started shifting a few things, kind of created a new design layout. We put our New Realm logo both, up at the top, a little bit smaller, let the brand be a little bit bigger, but then just off to the side of it, our logo ran vertically as well. So no matter where the can shifted, the logo would always be shown. The brand was big on the side, a little bit smaller in the front, big brand. And then we just really kind of played a little bit more around with illustration and letting the cans kind of jump off the shelves a little bit more. And it's done well. Hoptropolis got a refresh this year, which was a lot of fun to see. Kind of went more into like a tropical metropolis kind of vibe instead of like the
say tropical metropolis 5 times really fast.
Yeah, not on this one.
Well, let's go back a few years. Great insight, you guys, so far. Barry, because you're the one who mentioned this, what else can you expand on saying that breweries are acting like it's 5 years ago? What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, what they're doing with social and otherwise, just, playing the whack-a-mole with whatever they're putting out there. And one of the things that, Erik had mentioned earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and just put the piece of advice out there for these ones that are in that, hey, we're in the grow up phase, if you will, would be the creating a brand guidelines set. Like, that is something that it's surprising how few breweries actually have a brand guidelines set for it, especially as they get into distribution. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen, something printed by a distributor and, no fault to them if they didn't have good guidance behind it to where, something's going out there and it looks terrible. They do something and it's like, dark logo on top of a dark background and you've accomplished nothing, myriad things that way. But essentially, make sure you're setting yourself up for success and build something. They're, at their smallest, they're a single page. At their biggest, it's a full deck. But you know what? Build something so that the, people you're working with, including your internal staff, knows what fonts you're supposed to use, knows your colors, knows your logo use, knows how, design should work if you're using external, designers, yada, yada, yada. But like, just put the nuts and bolts together on a single document so that you could share this information with the people that ultimately need it. It's not about what it's about what you can explain to the people that you need to go and execute your brand's external view.
Yeah.
Off my horse.
Masterclass. Thank you very much for that. Well, I want to look outside of craft beer for a minute. I think so often we just look inside our industry to see what's working. What's an example from a brewery outside of our industry that you believe is knocking it out the park with marketing these days? Any favorites? Jim?
A brand outside of beer?
Yes.
I follow a brand because I like to watch a lot of fun TV at night. Like, I don't know if you guys watch Summer House, or there's a new one called Winter House. And it's a group of friends that, get together in a house right here on Long Island for the summer and winter. And they really party it up. But one of the guys, Kyle, on the show created a brand called Loverboy. And I think it's a hard seltzer. And if you check out that brand, it's absolutely stunning, because the one thing they do is just make sure you're going to love it or they don't do it. And I know he's got it probably made in the shade because the whole show they're drinking his product. But back to, like, what does it take to make a great merchandise business? And if you see what they do, you're talking about multi-million-dollar in sales, because they're doing like things like we probably all thought of, but just never pulled the trigger. It's like, here's one that's retro, and they do it like, repeat it down the shirt. Super easy, 2-color, and they sell 1 million of them. So I do follow that brand, and I like it.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Barry, Erik?
Yeah, there's one. I don't know if I would say that they're knocking out of the park per se, but one that's just always kind of just blew my mind, that I always just thought was like super cool, is the wine company 19 Crimes. Yep. That's one. You get your phone and you hover it over their label. So it's essentially 19 crimes. I guess there were 19 crimes that if you were convicted of one of these 19, that meant that you were shipped from like England to Australia. Like, that was back when Australia, that was like the prison. And if you were convicted, and so each wine label represents one of those 19 crimes and someone who was convicted of that. And if you put your phone over the label of that person will start talking and telling the story of how they got convicted, or what they did and how they got convicted. And, now I'm like, okay, that's all I got to do to go to Australia? Sign me up.
Very cool example there, Erik. I have to get one of those bottles now.
Yeah.
Barry, what about you? What's something you're impressed by?
Yeah, well, just off of that, I have to. So, like the Martha Stewart and the Snoop Dogg ones of those were pretty funny, and like, yeah, they're like in Walmarts and everywhere now. They're huge, but that AR function's really cool. We actually did that with back when I was at the brewery. We did a collaboration with the Dali Museum, and we put 4 different Dali pieces of art on there, and it had an AR function to where you scanned it with their app, and it did that, and it was cool, like experiential marketing. That's there's a bunch of examples out there, but if you have opportunities to do something like that and it's authentic to your brand and you can execute it at a high level, that's fun. That's different. Like, go for it.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing those neat concepts, everybody. Now, as we wind down, I've got one final question. And Jim, I know you have a new category as part of the Craft Beer Marketing Awards. Is it a tattoo category? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Tell me more about that. And I also heard that if you get 100 comments on this post, you're actually going to get a CBP tattoo right on your cheek. Is that true?
Probably work something out. Yeah.
Tell me about the new categories you've got this year.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The charity category that we have is category 40. It's best beer brewing related tattoo. We know there's a lot of those in the industry. I think we figured out 76% of our judges have tattoos, and the average is about 40. And everyone who enters a tattoo, it's only $50. You guys will have the opportunity to win a Crushy award. And all the proceeds are going to go to the Michael James Jackson Foundation. And if you want to check them out, they're at themjf.org. And they're a grant-making organization that funds scholarship awards to Black, Indigenous, people of color within the brewing and distilling industries for a more just, equitable, and dynamic future. And I think in our industry, that's something that we're all striving for. So it means a lot to us, and we're hoping to raise some money and send some more students to school.
Oh, that's really exciting. It's a great category to add there. I love the charity tie-in for sure. Now, Erik and Barry, you both have won some Crushies in the past. What Crushie do you hope to win this year?
Ooh.
do you have that piece of art that you're just super pumped on? You've already got it on it's ready to be submitted that you're hoping they got your fingers crossed on?
There's actually, I've mentioned Psychedelic Rabbit and Obsidian Jam. Those are both entered as well. So those, but, one that I haven't mentioned that I think I would also love to see, I mentioned, actually, I don't think I mentioned it. No, I did mention it on this. I'm doing Dry January. This is my 4th year doing Dry January, but this is my first year of Dry January where I am actually drinking New Realm's very first non-alcoholic IPA. So we submitted it in the non-alcoholic.
I'll take a sketch track of that one too, please.
It is awesome. We got to design kind of a Grim Reaper kind of look and feel to it, where you kill the alcohol, reap the flavor, RIP ABV. It's a lot of fun. We wanted to make kind of a label that was just kind of like, I don't know if I can swear on here, but badass. We wanted something just like really cool, and so that one I'm looking forward to.
What's that one called again?
7. That's category 7, Eric.
There
Best
you go.
can design, non-alcoholic craft bev.
We
All
look,
sizes. Sponsored by DWS Printing.
Okay. All right. I will be waiting. I will be there live this year too, Jim. So I look forward to seeing you, and I'll be patiently awaiting category 7.
Very exciting. Barry, how about you? What do you hope to win for?
Ones that we've won, or ones that some of my campaigns have won before were based around storytelling and all that. And as you know, I'm a big storyteller and a big fan of that. So really hoping that, some of our work this year can do well in that space.
Well, good luck to you both. And Jim, for anyone interested in learning more or submitting something to this year's CBMAs, where can they do so?
Check out thecrushies.com. All the information's there. I think we have like 17 days left to enter. January 27th is the deadline. We have over 40 categories, all beer, brewing related. We accept hard seltzer, mead, cider, and even now RTD cocktails that are made by breweries. So we have probably 8 or 9 new categories, some really cool ones. Best educational video services, which in our industry is really growing.
I was going to submit this video for that. Is that okay?
Yeah, please. That's sponsored by Cicerone Certification Program. So that's an exciting one that if you check out actually comes with some additional prizing, which we're really excited about.
Awesome. Well, very cool. And once again, thank you all for being here today. This has been a really insightful conversation, but one final go round. Is there any final takeaways that you'd like to share with everyone watching, listening? And lastly, how can they get a hold of you three if they're interested in following up with any questions or learning more? And Barry, you started us off. You get to finish.
Big takeaways. Have a strategy, hold yourself accountable to it, and just make 2023 the year that you execute on a high level. I'm Barry from Allocated Media. You can reach me at barry@allocatedmedia.com. And we'll be out at CBC also. So if you want to have a beer while we're out there, just shoot me a message.
I can't wait to
Jim,
see you in
Andrew,
Nashville, Barry.
I'll see you.
Can't wait.
It's going to be great.
Erik?
Yeah, one of the things that I've just kind of learned over my career is just always being able and willing to adapt to change, whatever that looks like, whether it's social media, algorithms and what people are responding to, various advertising tactics, to even what craft beer labels look like. They're different than they were 5 years ago, and they're probably going to look and be a lot different 5 years from now. So got to always be able to adapt to change. My email is eleach@newrealmbrewing.com, and hope to see you guys at CBC as well.
Awesome. And for everyone listening, I know it feels like forever away, but hope you can join us for CBP Connects this year. That's our series of intimate in-person workshops. We'll be in Milwaukee, June 19th to 21st, but I'm only mentioning this now because we'll actually be at New Realm Charleston in December of 2023. I guess it's this year now, but this December 4th to 6th, we're going to be hosting a nice little get-together there if you're joining for our Charleston workshop. So, Erik, hope to see you much sooner than that.
Sure, I'm sure we will. I'll be walking the dog, and so I'll probably see you in the neighborhood.
I'm sure it'll happen tomorrow. Jim, you're up. Final words.
I always just say, I think we all mentioned it at some point on today's call. Stay curious, and if you're ever in doubt, just do it. Everything's a learnable experience, and you could find me at jim@thecrushies.com.
Awesome. Well, three of you, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insight with us today. I'll see you very soon, and everybody, have a wonderful day. Cheers.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
Andy.
Cheers.
Good seeing you.